Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Addiction Unlimited. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. I'm so glad you're spending some time with me today because we're getting into some real shit, okay? We're talking about relationships in recovery, not in the fluffy, surround yourself with supportive people kind of way, but in the honest, uncomfortable, kind of confusing ways that it actually plays out when you get sober. I think everybody knows when you get sober, your relationships will change. Some will get better, some might get awkward, and some will feel like they're almost working against you, even when the other person isn't actually doing anything wrong. And all of that is normal, but it doesn't feel normal or easy when you're in it. So we're going to talk about 3 specific relationship situations that come up constantly, right? A partner who still drinks, your friends who are still in the party lifestyle, and a romantic partner who is still operating from the old version of you. And it's not necessarily just a romantic partner. This can be your family relationships, siblings, any of that, right? But they're still operating from the old version of you, and you're trying to transition into the new version, and everybody's confused. So today I'm breaking down why this happens and what's really going on underneath the surface. Let's dig right in. And first, I want to make a distinction that matters a lot for everything we're talking about today, okay? Sobriety is quitting drinking. Recovery is what happens when you start changing the patterns that made alcohol feel necessary in the first place. Those are not the same thing. And understanding the difference is everything. You can be sober and still live in the same chaos, still people-pleasing, avoiding hard conversations, still numbing out just with food or Netflix or shopping or working 70 hours a week instead of drinking, still saying yes when your body's screaming no, still choosing everyone else's comfort over your own stability. Okay, that's not recovery. Recovery is the internal shift. It's when you start noticing the patterns, when you start connecting the dots between how you feel and what you do, when you stop looking for ways to escape your life and start building one you don't need to escape from. And that process, that actual change, is what affects relationships. When you first quit drinking, the first job is very simple. Don't drink. That's it. That's your whole job. And to do that job well, most people have to temporarily shrink their world a little. Fewer triggers, less chaos, less exposure to emotionally spiky situations, less overcommitting, less drama, less saying yes to things that destabilize you just because everyone expects you to show up. Because in early sobriety, your nervous system is trying to find a new baseline. Think about it. If you've been drinking regularly, using alcohol to manage stress, numb discomfort, show up to social situations, sleep, relax, celebrate, grieve, whatever it was for you, your nervous system has been outsourcing its regulation to alcohol for years, maybe decades. And now you've taken that away, which is the right call, right? But your system doesn't just instantly know how to regulate on its own. It has to learn. It has to practice. It has to build new pathways. And that takes time. And it requires conditions. You need an even baseline. Not constant high highs and low lows, not emotional roller coasters every day just so everyone around you can stay comfortable, not volunteering yourself for situations you know will spike your anxiety or trigger your cravings, especially just because you feel guilty saying no, right? From the outside, This might look boring. It might look like you've become antisocial or overly cautious or no fun. You may even think like, oh my gosh, is this my life now? I go to bed early, drink tea, avoid chaos, and get excited about waking up without shame. Like, is this it? And honestly, yes. For a little while, yes. But it's not boring. It's stabilization. It's intentional. And it is absolutely necessary. Here's the key thing I want you to hold on to. Protecting your peace in early recovery is not selfish. It's the foundation. You cannot build anything, not lasting sobriety, not genuine connection, not a life you actually like, on an unstable foundation. There's a phrase I use with clients that I want to spend a minute on because it changes how people see their own behavior in recovery, right? Your serenity becomes your lifeline. When you first get sober, serenity might sound like a nice concept, something monks have, something people post on Instagram, but not something that feels immediately relevant to your actual Tuesday, right? But as recovery progresses, serenity stops being a nice to have and it starts being a survival tool. You start noticing what it feels like to be genuinely at peace, maybe for the first time in years. You notice what it feels like when that peace gets disrupted, and you start making different decisions based on that. That doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means you're changing. And the relationships around you may still be operating from the old version of you, the version who over-explained and people-pleased and said yes when you really wanted to say no, the version of you who tolerated chaos because chaos felt normal, or who confused intensity with connection, the version of you who drank, stuffed it down, blew up later, apologized, and then did the whole damn thing over again. That version of you had certain patterns, and your relationships learned those patterns. So when you start changing, it can create friction because the old system doesn't know what to do with the new you. And this is where a lot of people get confused. They think, well, I got sober. Why does everything feel weird? Because you're not just removing alcohol. You're rebuilding how you function, how you respond, how you communicate. You're rebuilding what you tolerate, what you call normal. And when you start doing that, your serenity becomes your lifeline. That's why sober people become different. It's not because we're uptight or because we think we're better than everyone else or we suddenly hate fun. It's because peace becomes protection. And once peace becomes protection, you start making different decisions. You stop volunteering for chaos. You stop entertaining every argument. You stop saying yes when your body says no. You stop trying to prove every point, reacting to every little thing like it's a 5-alarm fire. You stop letting people pull you into emotional drama just because that used to be the role you played. You stop confusing dysfunction with loyalty. You stop calling things normal just because they're familiar. Because when you grow like your life and serenity depend on it, because they do, relationships built around the old version of you may not know what to do with the new one. So today I want to talk about how relationships change when you're getting sober. And I want to give you 3 places where this shows up all the time. Like I said, the partner who still drinks, the friends who still party, and the relationships that are still operating from old patterns while you're trying to build new ones. And again, these can be family relationships, siblings, or romantic partners, right? This is the thing I want you to understand before we get into these situations. When you change, genuinely change, the people around you are not automatically on the same timeline. They still remember the old script. They still expect the old responses. They still know how to get a certain reaction out of you. And when you stop giving them that reaction, it can feel threatening to them, even when they love you, even when they want good things for you, even when they're proud of you. Because relationships, especially long-term relationships, develop patterns. Call and response, action and reaction. You do this, I do that. It becomes almost choreographed, and both people know their part. When you get sober and start doing the actual work of recovery, you start changing your part. You pause instead of reacting. You name what you need instead of over-explaining why you deserve to have needs. You stop chasing. You stop shrinking. You stop performing the version of yourself that relationship was built around. And the other person is suddenly in a dance where their partner changed the steps and didn't fully explain the new choreography. Some people will get curious. They'll lean in, ask questions, try to understand the new you. They'll want to meet you where you are. Some people won't know what to do. They'll get awkward, they'll get distant. And some people will push back because the old dynamic worked for them. The old you was easier to manage. The old you didn't have needs they had to respect. None of this means something is wrong with your recovery. It means your recovery is working. Okay, let's get specific. The first situation is the partner that's still drinking, right? This one comes up constantly and it's genuinely hard. Here's what I want you to understand first. This is not just my husband or wife drinks and that's annoying. It's deeper than that. What's actually happening is you are trying to stabilize your nervous system. You're trying to build a new baseline. You're trying to create conditions in your life where sobriety is sustainable. And the person closest to you, the person who shares your home, your bed, your daily rhythms, is still actively participating in something that destabilizes you. That's the real issue. And it puts you in an incredibly difficult position because you can't control what your partner does. You cannot make someone get sober. You can't force someone to recognize a problem they don't think they have. And most of the time, trying to control it will exhaust you and damage the relationship without actually fixing anything. So the question shifts. The question isn't, do they have to quit too? The question is, what do I need in my home and my relationship so my sobriety and serenity are protected? Not control, not punishment, not superiority, protection. It is not about suddenly deciding you're the alcohol police because you listened to 3 podcasts and bought a new journal. Your sobriety doesn't require everyone around you to stop drinking, but it does require the people closest to you to respect what you need to stay sober. Those are very different things. A spouse or a partner drinking can feel lonely, threatening, irritating, and heartbreaking in early sobriety. Not because you're controlling, because your nervous system is trying to stabilize while alcohol is still sitting in the room acting like it owns the place. And it did own the place for a long time. It owned the evening, the mood, the weekends, the arguments, the silence, the connection, the distance. It owned the way you celebrated. It owned the way you coped. So when you stop drinking and your partner continues, it feels like you're trying to build a new life in the middle of the old environment. And that's hard. Again, the question is, what do I need in my home, my routines, and my conversations to protect my sobriety right now? Because we're not trying to control another adult. We're getting clear about what support looks like. And it might be, I need alcohol out of the house for a while. Not forever necessarily, but right now while I'm building my foundation. Or it might be, I need you to not offer me drinks or casually wave a glass in front of me. I need you to not come home drunk and expect emotional availability from me. I need us to have some sober time together, activities that don't involve drinking. I need your support even when you don't fully understand what I'm going through. These are not unreasonable asks. They're not ultimatums. They're communication. They are you telling the person closest to you what you need to take care of yourself. Now, sometimes that conversation goes well and things shift. And sometimes you have that conversation and realize the person you're with is either not capable of or not interested in offering what you need. And that's its own painful information to hold. But you can't know until you are honest about what you actually need. And you can't get your needs met if you don't name them. And listen, some people will understand immediately. Some won't. Some will get defensive. Some will say, why does everything have to change? And the answer is because everything was not working. That's why. You did not quit drinking because everything was going beautifully. You didn't decide to change your life because alcohol was making you a more peaceful, more present, more emotionally stable person. You quit because something had to change. And when something has to change, the environment around you may have to change too. And if there's some resistance, that doesn't mean your partner is bad. That doesn't mean the relationship is doomed. It means this needs to be talked about honestly and not in the middle of a fight, not when they're drinking, not when you're triggered, not when your brain is spiraling and writing an entire courtroom argument at 1 a.m, right? Have the conversation when you're both calm. Keep it simple. Use clear language. I'm not asking you to understand every part of this right now, but I am asking you to respect that this is serious for me. That's reasonable. I am trying to protect my sobriety and I need our home to feel safer for me while I get stable. That's reasonable. I can't be around drinking in the same way I used to, and I need us to figure out what that looks like. That's reasonable. You cannot control whether your partner drinks, but you can communicate what support looks like and what boundaries you need. And sometimes that conversation will tell you a lot because a person doesn't have to fully understand your recovery to respect it. Okay, let's move into situation 2. Your friends still in the party lifestyle. This one is heartbreaking, I think, in a specific way that I want to sit with for a minute. When you get sober and a friendship starts to feel incompatible, people often think, I'm just losing a friend. But that's not quite it. You're not just losing a person. You're losing belonging. You're losing a ritual. You're losing the version of yourself who knew exactly where she fit, who had a role in that group, who knew the inside jokes and the regular spots in the shorthand. That's a real grief. And it deserves to be acknowledged as a real grief and not minimized. But here's the honest thing I have to say. Some friendships are real friendships, and some are drinking arrangements with memories attached. I'm not saying that to be harsh. I'm saying it because a lot of people discover when they stop drinking that the friendship was built almost entirely around one activity. Remove the alcohol, and there's not much left to talk about. There's no real curiosity about each other's lives. There's no support that isn't connected to showing up at the same bar. That's not a judgment of anyone, not you or them. It's just information about what the friendship actually was. The friend you meet for wine, the friend you vent with over cocktails, the friend you text when everything falls apart and somehow the answer is always margaritas, right? The friend who knows your wild stories, who was there for the chaos, who made you feel less alone in the drinking. And when you stop drinking, you may suddenly realize, like, wait, what do we actually do together? What do we talk about if we're not drinking? Do we have a friendship outside that lifestyle? And sometimes the answer is yes, and the friendship adjusts. Sometimes the person says, I love you. I'm proud of you. We can do coffee. We can go for a walk. I don't care what's in your glass. Beautiful. Keep those people close. But sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the friend keeps partying. Sometimes they don't know what to do with sober you. Sometimes they feel judged even when you're not judging them. Sometimes they avoid you. Some may pressure you. Sometimes they minimize your change. Sometimes they say, oh, you're different now. And the honest answer may be, yes, I am. That was the fucking point. That was the point. You didn't get sober to become the exact same person with sparkling water. What I also want you to know is that is their work to do, not yours. You are not required to stay the same to make other people comfortable with the version of you that was falling apart. You got sober because you wanted a different life, a different mind, a different body, a different energy, a different level of self-respect, a different way of handling pain, a different way of showing up for yourself. So yes, you are different. And when you lose a friendship, you're not just grieving the person, you're grieving belonging and rituals and familiarity. You're grieving the version of yourself who knew exactly where she fit in that relationship, even if that version of you was miserable, even if that version of you was anxious, even if that version of you woke up with shame. She still knew the role. She knew how to show up, how to be fun, how to be easy. And now you're becoming someone new. And new can feel lonely. Sometimes lonely is just the space between the old life and the new one. That's where you have to be very protective, because in that space, your brain may start romanticizing the old friendship. It might say, maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe I can still go. Maybe I can just hang out and not drink. Maybe I'm making too big a deal of this. Maybe. Or maybe your recovery is telling you the truth. Maybe your body knows that environment is too expensive right now. Maybe that friendship requires a version of you that you're no longer willing to perform. Maybe being around that much drinking, drama, gossip, chaos, flirting, shots, late nights, and emotional whiplash is not compatible with your current season. All that means is you're choosing yourself. You don't have to hate people to outgrow the dynamic. You can just quietly choose differently. You can say, I'm laying low right now. I'm not doing drinking events. I'd love to grab coffee. I'm focusing on my health. I'm not available for that, but I'd love to see you in another way. And then you watch what happens, because real friendships can adjust. Drinking arrangements usually can't. Okay, now let's talk about the romantic relationship stuck in the old patterns. Or like I said, this can be family relationships, whatever. This is the one that can get very confusing because it may not be about alcohol directly. It may be about growth, emotional maturity, communication, conflict, attachment, old roles, old dances, old ways of getting needs met. And it's subtle and a little sneaky, right? Your partner hasn't necessarily done anything new. They haven't changed. They're not suddenly a bad person. They're just still operating from the old script, right? Still expecting the old version of you, still relying on the old dance that the relationship was built on. And you changed the dance without a memo, without a roadmap, just you started doing things differently. And now the whole choreography is off. Here's what the old pattern might have looked like, right? You over-explain, they withdraw. You chase, they avoid. You apologize for having needs, they stay comfortable. You drink or spiral to cope with all the unresolved tension, and the cycle continues. You both knew your parts. It wasn't healthy, but it was familiar and it functioned. Then you got sober and you started changing. You start learning to pause. You start communicating more clearly. You start regulating your nervous system, telling the truth, setting boundaries. You stop chasing, fixing, shrinking, performing, apologizing for having needs. You stop using chaos as connection. And suddenly, the relationship feels weird. Not because it got worse, but because the old system required your old behavior to keep running. When you take away your part of the dysfunction, the whole dynamic has to either evolve or expose itself. Sobriety doesn't create the relationship problems. It just makes the problems impossible to ignore because alcohol can hide a lot. It can hide resentment and incompatibility and loneliness. Alcohol can hide emotional immaturity. It can hide the fact that you don't feel safe being honest. It can hide the fact that you're doing all the emotional labor. And it can hide the fact that the relationship only works when you abandon yourself. And then you stop drinking, you stop numbing, you stop overriding, you stop laughing things off that actually hurt. You stop pretending something is okay when it isn't. And now the relationship has to deal with the real you, the present you, the sober you, the regulated you, the you who is not willing to keep lighting herself on fire so everyone else can stay warm. That does not mean you have to blow everything up overnight, by the way. I want to be really clear about that. Real recovery doesn't mean you suddenly cut everyone off, delete every contact, move to the woods, and become a monk with a Stanley Cup. Although honestly, some days that does sound peaceful, right? But that is not the goal. The goal is not to become reactive in a new way. The goal is to become honest. Recovery means you start paying attention. What drains me? What destabilizes me? Where do I abandon myself? Where do I keep pretending I'm okay? Where am I still performing the old version of me? Where am I expecting people to support a version of me that they don't understand yet? Where do I need clearer communication? Where do I need a boundary? Where do I need patience? Where do I need to stop blaming someone else and take responsibility for my own part? Because this is not about making everyone else the problem. That's not recovery either. Recovery is not, I got sober and now everyone around me is toxic. No. Sometimes people are toxic. Sometimes people are unsafe. Sometimes people are absolutely not compatible with your recovery. And sometimes you're just uncomfortable because you're learning a new way to relate to people without alcohol, avoidance, and emotional chaos. So we have to tell the truth without being dramatic, right? And that's where the serenity piece matters. When peace becomes necessary, not optional, you start evaluating your life differently. You just start noticing things and you start making small intentional choices, right? A little conversation here, a boundary there, a decision to stop showing up somewhere that costs you too much, a decision to start showing up somewhere that actually fills you up. Recovery is built in those small choices over and over, day by day. And the relationships that can grow with you, they will. You'll both figure out the new steps. It might be clunky at first, but people who genuinely love you will do the work to meet the new you. In sobriety and recovery, you're going to realize some things are not worth the reaction. Some conversations are not worth the spiral. Some people are not safe with your growth. Some environments are too expensive emotionally. Some dynamics keep pulling you back into a version of yourself you're trying very hard to outgrow. And that's when you have to make different choices. Not from punishment or ego or from I'm better than you now, but from protection, clarity, and responsibility. From the understanding that your recovery has to come first, because without that, everything else starts to fall apart. And I know people hate hearing that sometimes. They want to say, but what about my marriage? What about my friends? What about my family? What about dating? I want to keep everyone comfortable. And I'm going to say this with love. You tried keeping everyone comfortable. How'd that work out? You tried ignoring yourself. You tried swallowing your feelings. You tried going along with things. You tried being low maintenance. You tried pretending. You tried drinking at it. And it didn't work. So now we're doing something different. Now we're building a life that doesn't require you to escape it. And that means your relationships have to be looked at through a different lens. Not, do they like me? Are they mad at me? Are they okay? Can I make this look okay from the outside? The better questions are, does this relationship support the person I'm becoming? Can I be honest here? Can I be sober here? Can I be regulated here? Can I have needs here? Can I set boundaries here? Can this person respect my recovery even if they don't fully understand it? And can I tell the truth about what is happening without making excuses for it? Those are grown-up questions. It's annoying, I know. I fucking hate growing up. And I promise you, I have done it kicking and screaming every step of the way, and I avoided it as long as humanly possible. But it is necessary because your sobriety is not just about not drinking. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to drink to survive your own life. That means your life has to change. Routines have to change. Coping skills have to change. Your relationship with yourself has to change. And yes, some of your relationships with other people may have to change too. Some will get better, some will need boundaries, some will need space, some will naturally fade, some may surprise you and rise to meet you. And some may show you that they were connected to your dysfunction more than to your healing. So if you're in this place right now, if you're sober and your relationships feel weird, awkward, strained, or uncertain, I want you to take a breath. You do not have to figure it all out today. You don't have to make every decision right now. In early sobriety, your job is to protect your baseline, protect your peace, protect your routines, protect your sleep, protect your support, protect your ability to get through the day without drinking. Then, as you get stronger and clearer, you can make bigger decisions from a more stable place. But do not ignore what you know. Don't keep handing your serenity to people who treat it like it's optional. And don't keep putting yourself in environments that pull you back into survival mode. Do not keep performing the old version of yourself when you've outgrown it. That's exactly the kind of work we do together. Because staying sober is one thing. Learning how to communicate differently, set boundaries, stop over-explaining, stop chasing, stop people-pleasing, stop abandoning yourself inside your relationships, that's recovery. And this is a huge part of what we work on in my coaching programs. Inside my 8-week program, we don't just talk about not drinking. Of course, that matters. That's the foundation. But we also work on the actual life stuff that made you want to drink in the first place. The communication, resentment, relationship patterns, guilt, boundaries, anxiety. The moments where you know you need to speak up, but you don't know how to say it without exploding, apologizing, or minimizing it. That's the work. And I've recently expanded my private coaching options, so there are a couple of different ways we can work together now. If you want deeper support, structure, ongoing coaching, then my 8-week program may be the right fit. And if you need focused, direct help with one specific situation, maybe a relationship issue, a communication problem, a family situation, or you just need someone to help you sort through what's happening or what the next right step is, I also have a private intensive available. So if this episode hit a nerve and you're thinking, okay, this is me, I need help figuring out how to do this differently, then book a call with me, addictionunlimited.com/call. We'll talk about what kind of support you need and which option makes the most sense for you. You don't have to figure all of this out alone. You don't have to keep trying to manage sobriety and relationships and emotions, communication, and everyone else's comfort with no support. That's exhausting. And honestly, it's just unnecessary. Go to addictionunlimited.com/call, book a call with me, and let's talk about what support looks right for you. And of course, that link is always in the show notes, addictionunlimited.com/call. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to build a life that doesn't require you to drink to survive it. And you're allowed to have support while you do it. I love you guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.